the Sutter Hospital. Here you will find everything necessary to accomplish diagnosis and treatment, a hospital's two main services. And here you will also find a third service, one for which you, and many people just like you, are directly responsible. You maintain it through your contributions. You make it work through your service. And at one time or another, this third service, the Sutter Hospital Auxiliary, will serve you. I'll show you what I mean. I'd like to have you follow me right through this door and into the lobby. Here is where most of us meet our first contact with the Sutter Hospital Auxiliary, the information desk. Hello there. If you don't mind, my friend and I would like to stand out of the way over here and sort of watch what goes on. Thank you very much. You see, this information desk cuts the burden of the hospital registration desk almost in half. Thanks to the auxiliary, the hospital can devote its full time in that department to the registering and dismissing of patients. The auxiliary information desk directs people like this young lady seeking employment to the proper department. And when one worker finds that she has to leave, there's always another one ready to replace her. And tell the many other visitors where they can find friends and relatives who are patients in the hospital. At this information desk, you'll also find a great many other services reach out to the patients throughout the hospital. For instance, hello there, they also deliver newspapers to the patients who desire them and make other purchases for patients at the gift shop or outside the hospital. In fact, whatever is needed, the third service is right on hand the minute patients and visitors come through the door. Volunteers work in this information service 7 days a week from 9 till 9 in 3-hour shifts. This is the gift shop that I mentioned a few moments ago. It's run by the auxiliary as a fundraising project, and all of the money taken in here goes right into the philanthropy fund. It's really quite a convenience for both the patients and their visitors. Here, people purchase necessities that might have been left behind in the rush to the hospital, such as combs, toothbrushes, or slippers, or perhaps, as this gentleman is doing, some little luxury item designed to brighten the day of some very special person. And quite frequently, you will also find auxiliary members making purchases for the patients. This gift shop is very important to the auxiliary because the services maintained by them are so numerous and varied, as well as necessary, they can't afford to depend on our donations alone. This is just one of several ways in which the third service finds to help itself while cheerfully helping others. As you can see, they usually do a brisk business. That's why it's staffed by volunteers 7 days a week from 10 to 4 and 6:30 to 9 p.m. Now, amazingly enough, many of the items sold here are made by the auxiliary members themselves. Do you remember that tassel clown that we saw on the counter just a few moments ago? Well, I'd like to take a minute here and show you just where it actually came from. That's right. This clown with the happy face, along with many other items, are carefully fashioned through the skill of these auxiliary workers. You'll find them here from 10 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon every Wednesday, volunteering their time, their many talents, to create the attractive items that we find sold in the gift shop. Other members of the auxiliary participate by donating time or materials in addition to their other work. And while much of the merchandise is made here, there are still other volunteers who will work at home during the week on items that they have designed and created for the gift shop. And all of this work, all of this planning is done so that you or any member of your family may enjoy the many advantages of the third service should you ever need them, or ever be in a position that your family should need them. Right here is one of the many reasons for all the activity. The library service of the auxiliary. It's a free service, 5 days a week. Here is a world of adventure and learning at the beck and call of every patient. In fact, it really isn't even necessary to call, because there goes one of our volunteer librarians with a cart full of those precious books to every floor of the hospital. Now, in case our librarian doesn't have the book the patient is looking for, a complete list of all the books in the library is provided, and the patient then makes a selection and the book is brought to her. You'll notice that each book is covered before it's passed on to a patient. When time seems to just creep along between visiting hours, there's nothing like a rousing adventure story to make it fly. But I'm afraid that intrigue in far-off places still takes a back seat when someone arrives with a few minutes of news from home like we just have. I wish we could stay longer, but meanwhile, back at the library, we see why this library service supplied by the auxiliary has become such an important function to the patients of this hospital. It's just one example of the many ways in which the Sutter Auxiliary looks after the patient's personal needs, giving doctors and nurses more time to look after their health, and proving once more that good treatment and good morale are an unbeatable combination. There are several ways in which the auxiliary helps itself. Here is another unique idea. The Next to New shop at 1115 20th Street. No matter what the article is, you're likely to find it here. Clothing, toys, furniture. In fact, anything and everything. And what bargain. Why, the entire shop is operated by volunteers, and all of the stock of Next to New merchandise is donated. So that means that every cent taken in here goes right back into the work of the auxiliary. Well, I don't want to keep us standing outside, so why don't we follow this lady in and see for ourselves just what the Sutter Auxiliary is doing in their Next to New shop. Well, you can see what I mean by Next to New. That's a lovely dress. And even though the merchandise is more varied than you'll find in the average shop, the quality is good enough to attract any shopper. And as if that weren't enough, look at the prices. Well, say, what have we over here? Mother and daughters engaged in a woman's prerogative, trying on hats. Well, now that doesn't look like an original by Mr. John that Mommy's putting on her, but I'll bet Mr. John would wish it were if he could see it modeled by this beautiful young lady. Say, turn around there. Let's see what that hat really looks like. Now, madam, that does something for you. Perhaps it's you that does something for the hat. It looks like even Mother is pleased by the selection of hats here. At the Next to New shop, a customer who is pleased means a patient who is happy. And people who come to buy here know that. Therefore, their satisfaction is double. The Next to New shop is open 4 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday from 10 to 4. A perfect example of the ingenuity, work, and determination within the Sutter Auxiliary, directed toward supporting Sutter Hospital's third service. And along with all of this work, have you ever stopped to think of all of the paperwork that's involved in an operation like the Sutter Auxiliary? Well, that's why I brought you here to the auxiliary office. The people you see working here are all volunteers. Now, when a new volunteer wishes to join the auxiliary, this is where she's interviewed, and where they take care of all the details from issuing uniforms to collecting dues. All of the financial reports are compiled here, and all of the purchases are made through this office. They're responsible in this office for all of the many details that are necessary to make an organization of this size function smoothly and efficiently. And so another volunteer is launched on the interesting and satisfying work of the third service. And if the new member has a liking for clerical work, well, there's plenty of it here for her to do. This lady is using the addressagram, one of several office machines that volunteers learn how to operate. The auxiliary's mailing list is a big one, and this way the work gets done much faster. This is also where the monthly auxiliary bulletin, the Sutter Sunray, is produced. It sends news of the auxiliary's activities to members all over Sacramento County. The auxiliary office also prepares and runs off all special reports for committee. Yes, thanks to this office, your auxiliary can operate smoothly, making certain that the greatest amount of service is obtained from the hours of volunteer help and money available. The auxiliary is justly proud of the manner in which their office performs its duties and turns out such an amazing amount of work entirely with volunteer help. In turn, executive committees such as this one are then able to handle the specific problems at hand, solve them rapidly, and proceed to the business of constantly improving the third service. And now here we are at the Sutter Maternity Hospital. The third service performs another vital function here, as this young couple will find out. Does this bring back any memories for you? Well, let's roll back the time, or roll it ahead, whichever the case may be, and put you in their place, with the same worries, the same fears, the same high hopes. A man is never more alone than at this time. Of course, he has the assurance of the best doctors, the best medical facilities, and probably most of all, the assurance of faith. And what a happy yet humble feeling it is when that assurance and that faith is rewarded with a new son or daughter. But what about the mother who rushed away to the hospital forgetting everything but herself? Well, the auxiliary is right on hand with anything she might have neglected to bring. A wonderful selection is brought right to her room on this card. Here she'll find everything she needs, even when it comes to simple birth announcements. The volunteers start their rounds every day at 1:30 and then continue to 4, with everything for milady from nail polish even down to her latest magazine. I imagine you rely on these volunteers quite a bit, don't you? I'll bet you do. You see, these ladies in this phase of the auxiliary are called errand hands, and for a very good reason. They take care of any errands the mother might require. Even when it comes to making phone calls and seeing how things are going at home. But things do not always follow a preconceived plan. Invariably, where you find an established rule, you'll find an exception. And in situations like this, exceptions can be serious. A case in point is the premature baby. Everything went according to plan for this man, up until 2 hours ago when his wife began experiencing the sharp pains of premature labor. His immediate concern was naturally for her. A long wait, full of anxiety, full of fear. And then finally, the words that he's been waiting to hear. And now it looks as if he's going to have her back, as well as the son that he's been thinking of and planning for the past month. That is, he'll have a son if it lives to leave the hospital. For his is a premature baby, and all of the knowledge and equipment available, combined with the untiring efforts of his doctors and nurses, may not be enough to warm that steadily burning flame into life. It's frightening and it's expensive. For while a normal birth may cost approximately $150, the extra cost of a premature birth can easily run to $500 or over. So what does this do to a family of average means? The plan has been to save and to set aside the regular amount. But now this is no longer enough. And you can't economize when you're buying the life of a son or a daughter. So where will the money come from? Certainly not from his income at a present time. Well, this is where your Sutter Auxiliary steps in, and arrangements are made to take care of those mounting expenses. A non-interest-bearing loan is made to couples having premature children, and the money is paid back into the fund as it becomes convenient for the couple to do so. It isn't charity. It's just a way in which the Sutter Auxiliary helps you and I when we find ourselves faced with this sudden, unexpected burden. I still didn't answer that question, did I? Where does the money come from? Well, it comes from us, from you, and from me, and from him. Yes, he contributed to the philanthropy fund last year, and you can bet that he'll contribute again this year, because he knows better than anyone else just how much that fund can really mean. Say, I wonder who these young ladies are. Just a moment, we'll find out. Oh, girls, we'd like to talk to you for a moment, if we may. We've been watching the Sutter Auxiliary at work today and couldn't help noticing quite a few other girls like yourself working with the ladies of the auxiliary. Are you members, too? Why, of course. This is the Junior Auxiliary that we've heard so much about. The Junior Auxiliary is comprised of members who join as sophomores in high school and then remain in the Junior Auxiliary until they are 21 when they become senior members. These girls work in all of the auxiliary's activities, except for the library cart and children's service. But perhaps patients who have been in the hospital over the holidays will remember these girls best for their tray favors. But I wonder about the children. That's right, children have to go to the hospital, too, at one time or another. And it's harder on them than any of us. That's why the Pink Ladies are so important to these little ones. These auxiliary workers are always on hand with a cart full of toys or a book full of stories to make the time go faster. The auxiliary workers always have time for the children. After all, that's what they're here for. They visit every child every day with some new interesting toy or game. And if it takes two to play the game, well, there's plenty of time for that. This little fellow looks like he's expecting someone. It can't be the nurses because they're all busy, or his mother or father because it isn't visiting hours. Yes, everybody's too busy to play. Well, here's who he's been looking for. Yes, it's time to pick out a story for the Pink Lady to read. A fairy tale adventure that will take him out of the hospital and whisk him away into a wonderful land of make-believe. The workers in the auxiliary are mothers away from home for these children. They fill the void left by the absence of the sick family's child and ease his mind from the pain with toys, games, or a story. And the wonderful part about it is that this important service goes on 5 days a week from 9 to 12 and 3 to 6, with volunteers taking part every day. And believe me, it's appreciated more than plain words can tell. Everything done by the auxiliary is appreciated not only by the patients, but by the hospital staff as well, because the work of the third service gives them more time to devote to their highly specialized skills, more time to fight sickness and conquer disease, time to give to those who are urgently in need of their technical training. And you are the one who makes all of this possible. It isn't inconceivable that you or I or a member of our family might one day find themselves enjoying one of these services. And that's why I wanted to take you to Sutter Hospital today, to show you how your contribution to the Auxiliary Philanthropy Fund is doubly important to those who will benefit in the future, as well as those who are enjoying the third service now. It keeps these busy emblems at work, spreading encouragement and hundreds of needed services among your friends and your neighbors when they need it most, through the Women's Auxiliary of Sutter Hospital.